This is the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, presented by thehoosier.com. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast. Another breaking news episode on this fine Thursday morning. I'm joined by Zach Browning, and we are reacting to Tayton Conerway, Troy Guard and Sunbelt Player of the Year, his commitment to Indiana. The Hoosiers got their point guard. Zach, I guess just your quick initial thoughts.
Yeah, I think you said it right there. They got their point guard, the Sunbelt Player of the Year. He was one of the top players amongst mid-major conference guys last season. The assist rate, the ability to defend at the point of attack. I think Indiana's got a guy that can lead their offense on the offensive side of the ball, and then on the defensive side of things can really be a pest at that point of attack and really give some opposing lead guards some issues on that side of the floor too.
Yeah, I mean, you watch Conaway, obviously the passing stands out in the point of attack defense, but, north and south, so fast, so quick, can get to the rim is one of his biggest strengths, but a big question mark is the three-point shooting. It seemed, streaky at times for most of the year.
Yeah, around 32.5% from three-point range over the course of his career. He's not an elite shooter. He's a guy that if in a standstill catch and shoot type of situation, he can probably knock down a three or two for you in that situation. But what Darian DeVries has done with this roster is he's constructed it in a way where Conaway doesn't necessarily need to be a knockdown shooter. He's going to be the facilitator. He's going to be the guy that's driving, getting around that first defender, collapsing the defense, and then kicking out to the guys like Lamar Wilkerson, Tucker DeVries, those guys that have proven they're top tier and elite knockdown three-point shooters. So Conaway, I think it'll be kind of like a case of Trey Galloway. He's not an elite three-point shooter, but if you need him to knock down a three, it's a catch-and-shoot standstill opportunity. I think Conaway could do that. I don't think he's going to light up the three-point charts this season. He could. I mean, there's going to be improved spacing on the floor, so maybe that three-point shot does improve for Conaway this season. But I think the big thing will be he's going to be the one getting the assists on a lot of Indiana's three-pointers because he's just got that drive and kick ability. You mentioned the downhill, the north and south driving. He's so quick. He's got a good handle. He's experienced. He uses that experience. He's never in a rush with the ball in his hands. So I think he'll be a good guy getting down towards the basket, slashing. He's a good finisher at the rim too. So I think that's where he'll really light it up for Indiana. The three-point shot is there. It's not a super big concern. It looks good. It doesn't look completely janky or anything like that. But I don't think the three-point shot will be something he'll be counted on a lot this season.
Yeah, and you mentioned the shooters he's playing around. Also add in Reed Bailey. It's not like, Indiana rosters of old where, you have a guard who can create, like, for example, Miles Rice last year where he really didn't have, the shooting and, like, scoring around him where he was able to, be that just facilitator like he wanted to be. And Tayton Conerway, I'm not saying he is Miles Rice, are very different players, but having, a Tucker DeVries, a Reed Bailey, Lamar Wilkerson around him, anytime he gets in the paint and the defense collapse, there's a good chance he's going to have a shooter open and someone who isn't just, capable of knocking down shots, but like will do it consistently throughout the year. But the point of attack defense, I think, is the big thing. You looked at the roster, for the first six guys before Conaway's commitment, and there was a little question marks on the perimeter defense. Conaway, he's a little bit of a riskier defender. He's going to, try to jump passing lanes, but, it worked out in his favor quite a bit last year, averaged almost 3 steals a game. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag there, but he is a, proven defender, but will take the risks on that end of the floor.
Yeah, and he's big enough to guard other guards is one of the bigger things. He's got a decent amount of positional size, 6'3", 186 pounds. That's not a small guard by any means. And Indiana's got that positional size. Tucker DeVries is bigger for a guard. He's a wing. Reed Bailey is more of a forward than the center. I guess you don't have too much positional size there unless Bailey's playing the 3 or the 4. But guys like Lamar Wilkerson, that's a big guard. Josiah Miles, who committed last night as well, that's big, athletic, long wings that can guard multiple positions. And I think Conaway is really the guy. He could probably guard some bigger defenders because he's clever enough defensively. He's got the experience. He's played a ton of college basketball. He's got the long arms. I think that's really the big thing that leads to a lot of steals. He gets a lot of those wraparound steals. So if a defender tries to cross in front of him, he's got quick hands. He can just slide that hand right in front of him and poke that ball loose. He's aggressive, but I think Indiana's got the versatility defensively, the athleticism right now, at least on paper, where Indiana could do a lot of switching next season. I think Indiana, depending on what they do at the big, what Darian DeVries does there, if Reed Bailey's going to run the 5 or if there's going to be a little bit more of a rim-protecting athletic center running the 5, I think Indiana's got a lot of switchability next season where you can see a guy like if Conaway goes for a steal, he doesn't get it, the guard gets by him. You could see Wilkerson jump to that guy. You could see Miles jump to that guy, DeVries, whoever it is, could switch that, and then Conaway can rotate on that backside. So I think he fits into the defensive system well because he's long. He's a good leader, not only offensively, but defensively as well. Watching his tape, he knows where guys are supposed to be. He's very vocal. He's active on the defensive end of the floor, and I think that's the biggest thing. He's just active. His presence is felt. He's sort of like Connor Enright in that sense. Like both of those two guys are going to get a lot of steals. They're active. They have active hands. They're going to play hard on the defensive end of the floor. Neither, I would say, are elite on ball defenders. Like they're not ball stoppers. They're not elite guys keeping guys in front, but they're good defensively. They're active and they play hard on that end of the floor. And I think that'll be something that the Indiana fans will really enjoy out of Conaway this upcoming season.
Yeah, and the other thing too, he's not the biggest guy, 6'3", but for his size, he, showed he was not just a willing rebounder. He's willing really to get after it on the glass for his size. Average almost 5 or 4.5 a game. But he had multiple games, or I don't know about he had a 13 rebound game this season. Like just a guy who is going to mix it up. And you're looking at the roster, and it does not seem Indiana's going to have the traditional just back to the basket, just space clogger they've had with a Khalil Ware and Umar Balla, Trey Jackson-Davis the last 4 years, where they, let's call it how it is, that they kind of bailed out some of the other rebounding deficiencies on the roster, where you were just relying on them to get every board. Indiana doesn't seem like they're building a roster like that. They have a bunch of guys who are, willing to get after it in the glass. Cy Miles, 6'6" guard, average almost 8 rebounds a game last year. Conaway's another one you add. Reed Bailey, for his size, maybe not the best rebounder, but you have guys that are willing to fight on the glass. And, this DeVries team, toughness is starting to be the word that's kind of sticking out when you look at across the roster.
And it's not only the toughness, and going back to the rebounding really quickly, there's 5 guys, even 6 guys, all 6 transfers that have committed so far. There are guys that not only are willing to crash the glass, the defensive glass, but they're willing and able to, once they grab that rebound, push up themselves. This isn't a situation where Miles Rice or Trey Galloway has to come back for the ball and call for that ball because Umar Balla is not bringing the ball to the floor. We saw it a couple of times last season, and it didn't go well. Malik Renew, too. This is a situation where if Reed Bailey grabs the defensive rebound, he's probably got the lenience and the ability to dribble that ball to the floor. Same with Tucker DeVries, same with Conaway, with Miles, with Wilkerson, with everybody, Sisley too. These are guys that are versatile, and that's the thing for Indiana. These are guys, we could see so many different lineups next season that Darian DeVries and Indiana roll out, because Wilkerson can play 3 different positions, probably 1 through 3. Miles could probably 1 through 4. DeVries too. Bailey as well. Conaway can probably play either guard spot on or off the ball, Enright as well. So it's such a versatile group that Indiana has next season, and I think that's a key moving forward. And you talk about the assists. Going back to the assists, the assist rate for Conaway last year was 39%. Around 39%. That's massive. No Indiana player over the last 2 seasons, whether it was Trey Galloway, Miles Rice, whoever, no Indiana player over the last 2 seasons had an assist rate north of 30. Conaway's was 39%. He's one of the best playmaking guards available in the portal this offseason, and he's coming to Indiana. That was a great recruitment by Darian DeVries. And the Hoosiers are doing a good job right now of identifying guys that can fit. Darian DeVries talked about it at his introductory press conference. These aren't the top 3-4 transfers in the entire country. Indiana doesn't have a top 5 transfer in the country last year. Umar Balla was one of the top 3 transfers available. Indiana doesn't have that type of player, but they have guys that can fit together and that are versatile and that will work together on the floor. And that's something Darian DeVries preached at his introductory press conference.
Yeah, you led me into my point. You look at compared to last year's transfer portal class, Miles Rice, Cannon Carlisle, Umar Balla, these guys were all, top 15, top 20 transfers. And, Indiana, you look at the rankings, I think Wilkerson's around 30. So is Bailey. Tucker DeVries is the highest. And I want to say he was 14 right now. But the rankings, they're very helpful, and they tell you based on what the guys have done in the past, not the future. You look at a guy like Walter Clayton, he was in the, I think he was like 68. John Tonje, an All-American at Wisconsin, was number 209. So it's about fit and situation more than anything. And we saw last year, Darren DeVries did it at West Virginia, completely rebuilt that roster from scratch and had a 10-win turnaround. And, they very likely, or not likely, they should have been in the NCAA tournament and got screwed by the committee. And if they made the tournament, they would have been one of the biggest stories after being dead last in the Big 12 a year before. And I have talked about this a little bit, but you look at the Darian DeVries, it's a guy who, it's a grinder. He's continuously grinding. I said it last night when talking about Josiah Miles. He does not sleep, and clearly isn't going to bed after Miles either, with Conaway committing right after, or a couple hours after. So, DeVries is grinding. The roster is not done, but now you're at a position where you don't have to force things. There's other guys that are going to enter the portal. You can see what's going to, who's there, and you don't have to rush because you have, a solid 7 right now, maybe 8, barring Luke Goody's, what happens with his waiver, but the longer it waits, the more unlikely it seems he gets it. So that's also something to watch for moving forward.
Yeah, the roster, again, people were concerned a couple of weeks ago about fielding an actual roster and actually putting a roster together. Darren DeVries is fine. The Indiana is fine. There's going to be a roster. They've shown that. And you're exactly right. Indiana can now afford to be a little bit more selective. The Hoosiers, they have their guys. They have their bona fide top 2 in Tucker DeVries, Lamar Wilkerson. Those guys are going to be the top 2 scorers. They have stretch big that can facilitate as well, and Reed Bailey. You've got some other guys as well, Josiah Miles. You've got Tayton Conerway, who's projecting to be your lead guard. So you've kind of got that figured out from the starter perspective. I'd assume that the 5 starters are probably currently on the roster for Indiana, and at this point it's probably about backfilling and creating some of that depth. And you've already got Connor and Wright. Trent Sisley will probably get some minutes this season off the bench. So it's about filling depth. It's about finding guys. Maybe it's a shooter you can bring off the bench. Maybe it's a 45% shooter you can bring off the bench at any given time. Excuse me. Maybe it's another backup lead guard who's got a good assist rate. Maybe it's a guy from Texas Tech like Kevin Overton who can come off the bench and provide some good possessions defensively. He's big, he's long, he's athletic, somebody like that. And of course, you're still looking at the 5 position, whether it's a rim running 5, whether it's maybe a stretch 5, who knows, but most likely a rim running, rim protecting 5 they could bring in. And it just gives you more versatility because then you can throw out more lineups. If you need a lineup where you're going up against a really talented post interior big, you can throw out that rim protecting 5. If you're playing against a lineup that's a little bit smaller, you can go Reed Bailey at the 5 and be a little bit more spread out there. So I think the next thing for Indiana, the next big domino to fall is probably at the 5 spot with a rim protecting, rim running guy, a guy that's, 6'10", 7 foot, that's big, that can block shots, that can protect the rim and whatnot. And then after that, it's about backfilling, finding those extra pieces, finding those guys off the bench that can give you a good 15 minutes here or give you a good 20 minutes there and things like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Reed Bailey. 6'10", he obviously can start it at the 5, but, the way of the Big Ten, the physicality of the Big Ten, I'm not sure if that's, what DeVries is looking to do throughout the season, but his ability to shoot the ball makes it so you can put a traditional 5, alongside him, and it's not going to clog the floor completely for your offense like we've seen in years past. Indiana's not going to a, offense where they are playing 2-3 non-shooters consistently on the floor. Like, that's not going to happen with this roster. Just looking at it right now, there's already so much shooting, and there are some question marks for sure. There's a ton of roster spots. Who's going to be that, the big 5 down low, and what is Trent Sisley going to be as a freshman? But I think it's fair to say Darren DeVries is on fire right now, but I don't know if Indiana fans should expect, another commitment like we've had the last, 3 in the last couple of days as I take out my charger. But it's like the last 3 days have been crazy for Indiana fans. I don't think we're going to have another 3-day stretch like that, the rest of the portal.
Yeah, not only the last 3 days, but the last week as well. You think back to Kenny Johnson and Mike Bargan getting introduced earlier this week, or last week, I guess, at this point now. Then obviously the 3 commitments in Wilkerson, Miles, and Conaway. I think it'll be interesting because the portal closes, the portal where guys are able to enter the portal closes in less than a week. But obviously guys can still that are already in the portal can come back. Obviously the Luke Goody situation, it's still probably a couple of weeks, a handful of weeks away from the Luke Goody situation resolving itself and getting resolved, whether that goes to court, whether the NCAA just straight up grants him his waiver, that remains to be seen. But Indiana's got time. As I mentioned, it's about selectiveness now. Indiana can be a little bit more selective. They can go and pinpoint, hey, this guy fits really well in this system. Obviously, Kenny Johnson has the connections out in the DMV, DeMatha, stuff like that. Bargan's got that Missouri Valley connection too. And we're starting to see the assistants kind of bring their expertise a little bit. Darian DeVries, obviously, you mentioned the fact that he's been a busy guy. He flew out to see Lamar Wilkerson to clinch that recruitment and that commitment. So he's willing to go the extra mile. He's willing to do things that maybe past Indiana head coaches haven't been able to do or willing to do on the recruiting trail. I'm not going to name any names. But Darian DeVries has shown that he is all in on Indiana. He is willing to go out there and fly to Lamar Wilkerson to clinch that recruitment and get that commitment over a school like Kentucky. So he's already shown he's willing to do those extra things. Again, it's about going out and finding that big man now and then backfilling the rest of the roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like when I look at that, there's one freshman coming in with Sicily, wondering if maybe another freshman, but it does not seem like that's the priority right now. You look at the roster, there's a lot of experience. I think the only one right now who would be coming back for DeVries' second year, it'd be Josiah Miles and Sicily, if I'm not mistaken. So, the portal is clearly going to be a big part of Indiana's, focus moving forward. It's not going to be a freshman-built team year after year. We're not going to see a team like, for example, Duke last year where, half all of that roster was, Duke, pretty much Duke freshmen and led by Duke freshmen. Indiana wants to be experienced. They want to be older. And they want to grind, and that's, Darian DeVries, what he's been doing. So it's a really good start. Obviously, we mentioned a lot of work left, but you're in a really good place now where you can be selective and be a little picky with who you're bringing in moving forward. But for the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast, thank you guys for listening. We're going to have coverage on the Hoosier.com website from tonight's spring game, all the other recruitments. If you haven't been following, we have our recruitment tracker. So any offers, scholarships that are being offered out, guys who are interested in Indiana, that's all going to be there on the premium side for just $1 for the first month. That's it. $1, Zach. It's really just $1 for the first month. You get access to everything. The message board, guys like Joe Tipton, Jamie Shaw are posted in there as well. IU football, basketball, all that stuff. We got you covered on the Hoosier website. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. It means a lot. Like this video and follow us on Spotify. If you can't, can't watch the video and you're in the car, you want to listen to it, we're going to have you covered on Spotify too. So make sure to follow us and like us there. Thanks for tuning in to the Talkin Bout The Hoosiers podcast. We'll be back.